Hello, folks. This is Michael Burhan again, doing another live stream. I know I haven't done one in a while. This is kind of like the second, like I missed a week basically. A lot of it was just due to my own issues. I suffer from anxiety and depression. When I tend to get into my own head, I tend to kind of want to just lambast in it. I kind of lock myself away and don't talk to people. Now, this is Nerd Genius HQ, the office, so to speak, that I shut myself in every single evening to kind of do these little live streams and bits and pieces. So you must forgive me. Trying to make sure that the camera looks okay. Having a few issues with the camera on the phone, might have to replace the camera itself, but we'll see. Now, I want to talk about something, and the reason why I want to talk about it is because it was something that's been on my mind for a while, and something that I really find kind of annoying, because there's been this huge debate recently about whitewashing in movies and television, and it does happen a lot. Now, I'm not going to sit there and say this doesn't happen, because it does, but I also want to give a difference of opinion, because I've worked in kind of several different aspects of film, television, entertainment, and I understand exactly the reasons behind this stuff. And a lot of it has to do with money. Because the fact that so many people sit there and go, no, this is an outrage, it's a travesty, I agree with you. And I'm going to agree with everybody in what they says. I'm going to try and play devil's advocate today and not try and get very, let my emotions run wild in terms of the situation. Because as an actor, I feel there's a lot of opportunities, but there's a lot of typecasting. This happens a lot. You know, with English actors, you have them cast in mostly English roles. If they try to go out of that box, kind of hurts them. The same goes for Chinese and Japanese actors and whatnot. Now, before anybody sits there and starts lambasting me for this or attacking me for this, I want to let you know that this is an opinion, and this is what I always do with these live streams. I always try to discuss opinions and try and put a viewpoint across rather than getting angry and starting to kind of get angry with people who don't share my opinion. I find we have that with the hard left and you have it with the hard right, and that's kind of a thing that I try to not do when I discuss things. And I think that in terms of anything and anything that you do in life, that's kind of the thing that you need to do. That's kind of the approach that you need to take it. Now, it was recently stated in the news, and it was shared on loads of sites. I got this off of Anime Comics, Movies and Games. If you want to go to the group, I'll leave a link below. It's via Xavier Josiah. And basically, it covers everything anime, comics, movies, and game related. The only thing they don't cover is wrestling. But still, I'm not really bothered by it too much. Now, the news that kind of he broke this himself on Twitter. This wasn't done by a press release, by a PR person, by anybody like this. And if it was done by a PR person, I'd find that the person that did it probably should have advised against this. Now, actor Ed Skrein, he's leaving the Hellboy reboot. Now, apparently he's associated with Game of Thrones. You must forgive me, I don't watch Game of Thrones, and the reason why is I'm waiting the series to wrap so I could do a burn through. I hear it's really good. You've got a lot of British talent in there as well, as long as a lot of American talent that are associated with this show. He was cast basically as a certain character. Now, I want to kind of do this justice, so I'm just pulling up the tweet itself and explain what he basically stated. And again, I applaud the fact that he stated this, and that, you know, you should always, I'm one of those people who believes that no matter what field you're in, you shouldn't be censored. You should be allowed to say what's on your mind, because if you say what's on your mind, that allows you to kind of let out those kind of feelings and emotions that you hold close, because we're all human beings. We all have an opinion, and as long as it's well researched, then it's fine. Now, he basically went on Twitter recently, and he stated that last week I was announced that I would be playing Major Ben Daimio in the upcoming Hellboy reboot. I accepted the role and unaware that the character in the original comics was a mixed Asian heritage. Now, I understand that. They're saying that he was a mixed Asian heritage. There has been intense conversation and understandable upset since the announcement, and I must do what I feel is right. It's clear representing a character that's culturally accurate way holds significant for people, and that to neglect this responsibility would continue a worrying tendency to obscure ethnic minority stories and voices in the arts. I feel it's important to honour and respect that. Therefore, I have decided to step down in the role and have it cast appropriately. Representation of ethnic diversity is important, especially to me, as I have a mixed heritage family. It's our responsibility to make moral decisions in difficult times and to give a voice to inclusivity. It is my hope that one day these discussions will become less necessary and that we can help make equal representation in the arts a reality. I am sad to leave Hellboy, but this is a decision that brings us closer to the day, and it's worth it. I hope it makes a difference. With love and hope, Ed. Now, again, as I said, this was posted on August 28th, and it was posted on at 8:02 p.m. Now, I agree with his stance. I think that we do have a lot of whitewashing in movies and television. But let me explain why that is. Because in theatre you have equal representations of characters, but you don't have equal representation of genders. You don't have equal representation of religious beliefs and other belief systems. It's usually used as a method to explore. In theatre, you can basically take characters and actors and explore certain situations, which is a great thing because it allows you, or myself and any other person out there who decides to do acting for a living, as an actor, to explore a certain character. Now, in this situation, it kind of differs from film and television. And I'll explain the reason why it differs so much. Because of box office intake. When you're in a major motion picture, and Hellboy, the reboot is going to be a major motion picture, so it's going to be released at a certain amount of screens. They're going to be having a certain amount of people involved in the process. And the biggest thing that they're going to do is they're going to want to cast someone that can put butts in seats. That means they want a domestic gross which exceeds the budget of the movie. So if they say do 200 million on the budget, they want at least 3 times that, like internationally and domestically. So if you spend 200 million on a film, they're going to want you to basically recoup at least 5 to 6 million. Hopefully, if it's a smash hit, $7 to $8 million. Now, 800 million, should I say? And that's fine. And when you look at that, a producer is going to be more inclined to get someone who they feel people are associated with. Now, that's why you have Tom Cruise playing The Last Samurai, or you have basically Matt Damon playing a Chinese person. Is it right? No. But here's where the problem lies. It's because people associate with certain characters as themselves. That's why they don't basically physically associate with characters. Now, here's one that I'll give you an opportunity, like Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan has been a forefront in kind of the Kung Fu genre, where he's been going out, he's been doing like martial arts in movies. He had like successes like Drunken Master, Rumble in the Bronx, these movies that managed to make a lot of gross overseas for Chinese cinema. They brought him over, and his English wasn't that great, so he didn't translate well. What happened? His movies bombed, and the reason why his movies bombed was because he couldn't act the way that he would act if he did Chinese movies. It happens that way, and I'm not saying there's no American Chinese actors that can fulfill those roles, but right now, we don't have those people at the top. Can you name me one Arab actor right now? And don't say Ben Kingsley, because Ben Kingsley is white. So name me one Arab actor that plays an Arab role that you know of. You don't. And that's the problem. It's by association and what you digest as a people. It's the reason why Kim Kardashian's famous right now, because people associate with her. She's not really someone you should associate with, but she's associated with people. So people look up to her. People want to buy her products. They go out, they buy her stuff. They go out and they do stuff with her. That's why she's been in TV shows. That's why she's made cameos in movies, because, to be fair, she's not that great of an actress. And it's kind of the reason why we had Paris Hilton doing films at one point. And she had a very moderate success of a music career. If you want it to stop, you have to use your money to say, right, if this movie is going to have a white man playing a Korean actor, or an actor's role, or you're going to have a bunch of white guys with a fake tan playing Arabs speaking in RP, then it's your job to stop it. You've got to sit there and go, I'm not buying the ticket for this movie. And that's where the problem lies. You cannot sit there and make this sort of stance, because I guarantee you, I don't think Ed is going to be doing anything else for a while. I think he eventually will, but I don't think he's going to be. They're going to have producers looking at him going, well, that guy is kind of a troublemaker, so we're not going to basically add him. Is that right because he spoke his mind? No, because I believe in freedom of speech. I believe you are free to do and say whatever you please as long as it's not hurting anybody or their families. That's me. So you've got this situation. You've got this rather intelligent individual who's spoken out and who wants to show some sort of change. But the change isn't with the studios. The change is because we've kind of come accustomed to this. I think there's only one person off the top of my head that I can actually sit there and say he is one of the highest grossing actors that everyone would go and see. That's The Rock. And he's not really an actor, he's an entertainer and he's an action movie star. But people buy The Rock's movies. But even on a certain retrospect, you go to a Rock movie, you expect a certain thing. Even he can't hold a full box office with movies like Baywatch. Does it suck? Yes. This whole situation sucks. But sitting there trying to blame the studios outright and saying this is your fault for not recognizing it is wrong, because you're pressuring people to hire actors who are not going to make bank because you're not going to want to see them in a movie. And you're pressuring these people to basically cast more of a diverse role for these actors when they're not there. But you're also screaming for them to recast white characters as black, as Asian, as all other diversities when they weren't written that way. So we've got to make up our mind what we want, and we've got to basically sit there and go, well, if we want this, we have to stand by it. If you're a fan of Idris Elba, go and see The Dark Tower. If you're a fan of, I've forgotten what the guy's name is who's playing Black Panther, go and see Black Panther. There are loads of black actors out there. There are loads of white actors out there. There are loads of Asian and Oriental actors out there, Arab actors out there, who are willing to put the work in, who are very, very polarizing and very good at what they do. But you've got to support it. And that's where the problem lies with this whole thing. And what he's done right now is he's created kind of a PR nightmare for himself, right? Because he's basically sat there and went, I'm going to say this, I'm going to do this, and then you're going to have a slew of people on the internet who are either fans of his or just trolls, find out who this company is and lambast them. You're going to have people in the media lambast them because it's a political agenda, it's a political move. If I was Ed, I would have literally just spoke with them. If they couldn't do what I asked, then I would have been like, hey, you know what, I'm not going to take on this role. I don't feel right about it. I understand we were going to do this, but thank you anyway, and then part ways and move on. Because all he's done is created unnecessary tension when there shouldn't have been. And again, I agree 110% with his stance on this. I do. But as a PR standpoint, and I was talking to a friend of mine who's a PR rep, and I explained to her the whole thing. I sent her a picture of the Twitter tweet and asked her, would she do the same exact thing? Would she, if he was her client, would she advise him to do that? And she basically said no. And the reason being is because it's creating tension with the studio themselves. And no matter what happens, if you're a director, an aspiring director, or an aspiring actor, or an aspiring producer in your own right, you want people to back you. And in order for them to back you, they want to know that it's okay to work with you. And by doing stuff like this, he's just labeled himself a troublemaker, unnecessarily, but he's labeled himself a troublemaker. And thus creates the dilemma, it creates the conundrum in a sense. And I'm as left as the next person. I literally am as left as the next person. I agree with morals. I agree with treating everybody the same way, and that color shouldn't have a face, you know. Being male, female, whatever, it shouldn't have a face. Everyone should have an equal opportunity. In an ideal world, that's exactly what we should get. But stuff like this creates tension. And thus it creates a big issue in terms of what his career is going to do in the moving into the next direction. If he's going to have a full career moving on from that, he may do. Again, this is a crapshoot because he's literally like thrown the dice and decided whether or not he can gamble his money on this. He may be financially secure. That's probably one of the other reasons why he made this decision, because he knew that the money that he basically would have gotten from that anyway would have probably cost him a lot more in terms of his fan base and in terms of basically his own morality. And that's again, that's fine. But then we have the bigger conundrum of the whole situation now, which is where does he go from here? And I don't know, truthfully. And also, where does the studio go from here? Do they take note of his issues with the reboot? Or do they just go on to the next person on the list who could predominantly be white and may just sit there and go, well, I'm going to do it. And thus is where we have the problem. And talking about whitewashing, right? Let's talk about Ghost in the Shell. Because Ghost in the Shell, I watched it. I don't know if most of you guys have watched it. But I've seen this movie, and I had no issue with Ghost in the Shell. And there were videos that were done asking, like, the Japanese audience, saying, hey, do you hate the fact that this film was whitewashed? Or do you agree with the whole idea of, like, of the whitewashing? They didn't give a shit. They liked Scarlett Johansson. And now what's happened is, I've even seen countless reviews on this movie, which are mainly positive. And now, because people got angry over something that, truthfully, again, was done to kind of put a huge box office draw with an unknown property in order to turn it into a series. We're never going to get another Ghost in the Shell movie, and this property probably will never get touched for, well, forever, basically. Probably for another 10 years, 10, 20 years, maybe. But saying that, it boggles the mind where we're in a society now that will rather fight over ethnic diversity in roles instead of actually, doing it with our wallets. And that's the main thing here. And again, Ghost in the Shell was one of those where people heard something, they didn't judge it for its own right, they didn't sit there and go, this looks okay. And for a lot of people, like I myself was sitting there going, oh, I'm not sure, maybe they should have done this in kind of Japan and had Japanese characters and not gone that way. But then I sat there and I started thinking about it. If you look at a Western audience and you have people who are kind of westernized to this, you're going to want to see something that you can identify with. And again, society has become more open-ended now. We are inviting a lot of diversity into everything. But it's like the Gal Gadot argument in terms of Wonder Woman and the fact that she wasn't getting the same salary as Superman and all this shit. People didn't understand that they took a chance with Gal. The movie made money, now they can take an even bigger chance with Gal. And then they will renegotiate her contract and then renegotiate again if the second movie does well, if the third movie does well. And this is how Hollywood does it. When you're sitting there and you're going for a role, I audition for a role, my agent then, if say I get the part for whatever it is, maybe it's Arab Man number 4, who knows, and my agent sits there and says, yeah, this is the reason why you've got this part. I'm going to negotiate your fee, and then we're going to go from there. That's the way it should be, because it gives you an opportunity to negotiate a small fee at first, see and truthfully, in normal 9 to 5's term, the fee isn't that small. Like, you're earning a big chunk of change. 200 grand for being the face of a movie, and if it makes money in the box office, she probably gets a bit of a back end on that as well, then she's rolling in it. 200 grand is nothing to laugh at. So you make that money, then you move on to the next film and the next film and the next film. And this is how people work in Hollywood. When you work with producers offer a certain amount of money to an actor to lead a film. If the actor is not tested, if they've been in movies but have never been a lead, they're going to give them a chance and give them an opportunity to see if they can be a bankable star in a certain movie. The way they did it with Gal Gadot was great. They rolled her into Batman vs. Superman. She was the best thing about that movie. They announced the Wonder Woman movie. They made the movie. It made bank. Now she gets to renegotiate for the second movie and the third movie and the fourth movie. And that's how it works. And it's up to your agent, the person who basically helps you get the roles in the first place and puts you forward for castings, as the way that Hollywood goes, because as an actor, you can't really apply for your own roles unless under special circumstances like open castings and stuff. And they will basically get their 20%. They'll earn their 20% by putting you forward for these roles, getting you into those situations and allowing you to prove yourself and prove that you can be a big box office draw so that you can move on from there. It's the same goes for directors, the same goes for anybody anywhere else. And this is kind of the problem. We're so focused at the moment on diversity and gender gaps and everything in Hollywood, where it's actually gotten a lot better than it used to be, you know. And at the same time, we've got new technology and we've got new people coming out of the independents who are making money in Hollywood and making diverse changes. And it's up to not just like you, it's up to me, it's up to everybody out there if we want to keep seeing these changes going forward. Speaking out without actually understanding that it could basically cost you your career doesn't help you. And damning a film before it's even released doesn't help as well. Like, Ghostbusters Answer the Call. The reason why that movie was bad wasn't because of the actresses, it's because you had a director who didn't know what he wanted. He had his own agenda, he didn't understand the material, he wanted to make a Paul Feig movie that had the Ghostbusters names. People hated it, we moved on. You know, I do hear that little girls had a chance to watch the movie and a lot of little girls want to be Ghostbusters because of it. Great role models. But it gives you the template on how to do a diversity movie and not do a diversity movie. But at the same time, you have polarizing actors coming out, you have polarizing directors coming out, you have polarizing stars coming out into the mainstream landscape who can definitely change things, but not do it where the change is forced. Because when you sit there and say, I have a mindset, and that's your only goal, even though you're not a fan of the genre, it turns into a whole Anita Sarkeesian situation where she sits there, lambasts movies, lambasts games, sits there and pushes her own agenda instead of actually sitting there going, what is this? What is the material? Who's playing what? Like, recently I played the Telltale Batman series. I love the story. Some changes I sat there and went, why did you go through this change? Like, they've changed Oswald Cobblepot to being kind of a penguin-like, shrumpy little businessman to kind of someone quite attractive. And I sat there and went, why would you go that route? But I'm looking at the story and seeing how they go from there. The voice acting is kind of atrocious. It's not on par with the usual Telltale fare, but I look at it and go, maybe I can give this a chance and see how it goes. And the story, as always, is great. So that helps. And I think that's kind of where we need to go in terms of the genre. And I've always said this, if you're going to protest something, do it on a case-by-case basis. Look at the material, look at what's going on, look at how they're handling it. With the Sony leak, we had a great opportunity to see the entire process of how Answer the Call was put together and how it became from being a Ghostbusters remake to being an agenda political issue. That was wrong. But with Ghost in the Shell, it was kind of a love story to the original source material that worked for a lot of people, but there was this kind of loud minority that fizzled the film out and it didn't make ticket sales, which I felt really bad for Scarlett Johansson, the producers behind it, and the fact that this movie looked sublime. It was visceral, it was spectacular, and it did everything that it was supposed to do, but people still went against it because, hey, you know, whitewashing. And yes, I don't want to see a big famous white actor portraying a Oriental stereotype or an Oriental character or a Asian character or a black character. But it's the same thing where I don't want to see a Pakistani person playing an Arab character, or I don't want to see someone who's not a certain like association with a certain culture of people playing that. But it happens. So all you can do is look at it as a case-by-case basis because sometimes it does stand out. We've had so many movies that have come out that were written for one set of culture and then changed into another, you know. It had Leonardo DiCaprio, Jack Nicholson. I'm trying to figure out what it was called, but it was an amazing, amazing movie. Let me find out. My brain is going. I'm getting tired. And lucky I have my laptop handy. And it was The Departed. That was it. 2006, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, starring Jack Nicholson, and it was based on a Japanese movie. And it was a great movie. It was polarizing. It was changed. The characters were changed. Things and narratives changed. And it really worked for what it was, because it turned a movie that was mostly a martial arts movie with kind of this underlining gangster story into a gangster movie. And that's the thing. And I have no issue with that. And I think sitting there and clinging to a narrative and saying, well, we should basically make sure that these types of characters are casted in these types of roles, and then going on another narrative saying, hey, I think Captain America should be black, or I think basically Iron Man should be a woman. It's kind of hypocrisy. You're sitting there saying, well, we should change the gender and identities and basically change the ideas of certain characters, but then in others, if they try to do it to characters of that type, then that's wrong. And you know what? If you look at the amount of ethnic minorities now in Hollywood, it's a lot bigger in comparison. Bollywood only casts Indian, mostly Indian. I'm not going to say Pakistani because there's a rarity when they ever cast a Pakistani person, but they're one of the highest grossing film industries in the world. The American film industry has actually eclipsed them now, but basically thanks to the Marvel movies. But they're making a shit ton of money. And no one's sitting there crying out that Bollywood needs to have more white people in there, or more Pathan, which is like light-skinned people in there. No one's screaming about that. Everyone's fine with that. You've got Asian movies, like Japanese martial arts movies, that have some white supporting characters sometimes. Like you had Bob Sapp in a lot of Japanese movies, but that was because he was kind of a cultural icon over there. He held the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. He was a mixed martial arts guy, and he was a black actor who really couldn't act. And again, what happened was people didn't get hooked on it, and that's the problem. You look at the narrative, you look at the actors involved, you look at what it is and what you're presenting to your audience. And if you can't see what you're presenting to your audience, there is no way that you can sit there and go, this is wrong. It shows how I think people need to look at the simplistic side of things and say, if you don't understand the inner workings of something, you've got to give it a leeway. You have to understand it. And when I was looking at the interviews, I think, who was the producer that discussed this? I think it was a director, actually, who was discussing it, who was saying that they want to cast predominantly certain races and they want to cast a diverse cast. And they can't do that because there is not enough leading men and women out there who are basically in that role. Like Scarlett Johansson's probably the biggest thing out there right now. Gal Gadot, again. And depends if she can actually make money outside of the DC genre of movies, the comic book genre of movies, or if Wonder Woman's going to be the be-all and end-all. But that's up to you. If you want to instigate change and you want to basically make sure that more people like myself, because I am an actor of color, are in these roles, then you have to basically talk with your wallets, and get these film companies to listen. I just feel that every movie deserves a certain opportunity. Like, I've seen the Death Wish reboot. I like it. I think it adds a new spin on things. A lot of people hate it because they're a fan of the old movies of Charles Bronson, which you still do have. But you don't need to sit there and get pissy about it and sit there and go, oh, I'm not going to go and see this movie, and I'm going to make sure no one else does. Let's rally. We've got more important things to worry about. We've got like a guy who basically wants to start a nuclear war with North Korea. I have basically issues currently going on with the UK, where we have a prime minister who wants to basically throw out anybody from the country, despite whether the fact they're here legally or not. And that's the thing. When it comes to movies, when it comes to games, when it comes to any form of entertainment, just enjoy it. Enjoy the characters and how they're portrayed. If it sucks when it comes out, then you can sit there and go, yeah, you know what? That's because you didn't cast this person. But in my opinion, I think as someone who believes in basically diversity, I believe in equality, I believe in all that stuff. I am pretty much an idealist at heart. But I do feel that people jump the gun a lot because everyone wants to see change happen now. And we're not looking at the bigger picture of things here. Idris Elba is another one. We should have had a Black Bond. We didn't. They just signed Daniel Craig on for like, I think 3 more movies. I think they just basically went, here, truck of money. We should have seen, we're seeing a female Doctor and people are getting pissy about that. Make up your mind. That's kind of the pros and cons of the internet right now. Because the pro of the internet is everyone has a voice. The con of the internet is everyone has a voice. So you've got these people out there who just want to shame everything. Respect your creators, respect their creative work. And if you want to see more diversity in roles, more diversity in film, television, whatnot, support them. Support the creators out there who make movies, the directors and the actors in the independent scene. Respect the material and say to people, like, this is not what we want, by going to the cinemas. And if there's a movie that you don't like and it looks god awful, do not buy a ticket. All you need to do. It worked with Ghost in the Shell, which was terrible, to say the least, because it was actually a good movie. It didn't work with Death Note, which Netflix spent a lot of money on, but looked like something from YouTube Red, with a very shitty story, and I had no idea why they went in that direction. Oh, God, that was terrible. I feel so bad. I feel so bad for everyone involved, apart from William Dafoe. He's just sitting there, like, laughing with his truck of money. Oh, God, that movie. Oh, that was bad. It was so bad to the fact that it was so cheaply made. It's like you spent all your money buying the rights to this thing, and then everything else came secondary. And then you were like, let's rewrite the story and make Light more of a kind of a protagonist. And yeah, no, he was unlikable to begin with, and he's supposed to be unlikable. It just never works that way. But still, we live, we learn, we have life lessons, and as far as I'm concerned, I really, really hope Ed Skrein, and I wish him the most success in his career. I really hope that this doesn't hinder him in any way, but I also really hope that people see outside of the box and judge each project individually. Because once you do that, once you look at the trailers, once you understand what this movie is, then we can judge it. And if it's shit, then it's shit. Then hopefully no one gets to make this fucking thing again and we leave the old movies alone. I loved the original Hellboy movies. I thought they were classic and just leave them at that. But they want to do it again? Let them. Ron Perlman's amazing. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know your thoughts. Leave your comments below. Let me know exactly how you guys feel. Because as I said, I'm conflicted by this. Because I felt that I do agree we need more diversity in movies, but I don't think going out on Twitter and stating what happened and why you bailed out of a movie, that it kind of, to me, smells of peer pressure. It feels like he's catering towards his audience more than understanding that the reasons why these happen. Because as an actor and as someone who's worked in the industry for a while, I've been in it in a decade, I understand exactly why these moves are made. And do I agree? And again, I don't agree with it necessarily, but I understand it. And at the end of the day, you're going to want to see Robert Downey Jr. as your next Iron Man, then see somebody else in that role, and that's white, black, or whatever. And that's the thing. You want change, then change needs to be made, but it has to be the right change. Because you take a movie like The Departed, and I'll use it again as that reference, that was showing good change. You had white actors in a mob film that came from infernal affairs over in Japan, and you could see exactly how rightly the source material was used. And I get everyone has an agenda. I understand that everyone wants equality, but by throwing everybody else under the bus, by lambasting people, you're not going to get equality, because all you're doing is forcing people into a situation and creating a divide when you want to embrace equality and change. But that's me. So that's it from me, and I shall see you again. And again, if you want, I have a Patreon on the side there. Please donate if you want to. Funds go towards me making my next film project as a director myself. If you don't, that's cool too. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. And if you agree, disagree, leave a comment below. Let me know, because I want to hear what your opinion is on the matter, because your opinion is the only reason why I'm doing these videos. And as someone who appreciates his audience and I understand everyone has their own opinions and viewpoints on this. I'm not going to judge anybody on their views and opinions, because that's what you have, and I understand it and I will cherish that. But at the same time, understand and respect other people's views as well, like mine. And understand that I'm just stating an opinion, and I'm not basically trying to put my opinions as facts. Nothing of sorts. But that's it, and I shall see you again. And as always, make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, and share. This is Michael Burhan saying, and I've got gameplay. Have you? See you soon.